Hey, everybody, we're here with Steve and Nancy again, and they're going to talk to us about step six. It is June. Where, if you don't know already, we have been talking with Steve and Nancy all year, with starting in January with step one and February with step two. And we're going to continue through the end of the year. And I'm just really grateful that you two are in my life and we can get all your wisdom and knowledge and spiritual experiences all on our YouTube channel. So that's awesome. Thanks, Steve and Nancy, for showing up again today.
And thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I'll go first.
All right.
Okay, so my history with step six, in the beginning, it wasn't much, if anything at all, just kind of a pass through. And that's changed over the years. When I was asked one time at the beginning of step six in the 12 and 12, it says, this is the step that separates the men from the boys. Then the next thing my mentor or sponsor said was, why do they say that? You would think they would say it about step one or about step 9, but they say it in step 6. This is the step that separates the men from the boys. And I thought long and hard about it and said, I don't know. And so we decided it might behoove me to find out. And what I've come to see, as I understand step 6 over the years, is I'll start with step 4, where, did I make an honest inventory? In step 5, did I share it? And did I get to see the exact nature of my wrong? What was my core mistake? And because I'm a real big believer that if I want something in my life to change, some effect, I have to address it at the causation level. And that's the first time I had ever been introduced to that idea. And so in step 6, to me, it was, have I seen enough in step 4 and step 5? Just all the chaos that I caused in my life, all the chaos that was my life, and the continuing, even though at the time in history that I'm talking about was years and years ago, but still in AA, have I just seen enough? And I'll talk specifically about a couple of items. When I was really, really interested in experiencing the effects of the recovery program, I wanted a new life. And if you would listen to me talk, I was willing to do the work to get the new life. And then I get to step 6. And at that particular time, I was active in an affair and I was cheating on my taxes. I had my own business and I had a way, I thought, of making more money by not paying taxes that I should have been paying. And it was okay with me. And so the insanity of going through the steps, and I wanted to lead, I don't use the word a spiritual life because I was introduced to the idea of leading a sane life, and they're the same thing. Because when I think, if I tell somebody, hey, I want to live a spiritual life, then what do? Walk on water to prove it? Or it's just like, it brought up prejudices when I would hear people say they want to be spiritual. But if it's the same thing, if being spiritual is the same thing as being sane, that was real easy for me to comprehend and embrace that thought. So I'm going through step 6, ready to go to step 7, but I'm not willing to change some behaviors that I was hiding. And and even on this tax deal, I wrote that on my inventory. I admitted it to my, to my sponsor, and I was kind of like avoiding the thoughts of steps 8 and 9 are coming up pretty soon. But see, I was still doing it. And in reading step 6, in the 12 and 12, which of course is a much larger explanation than in our big book, you got to see, do I really want to be sane? Because I could easily admit that my behavior in my mind, which was completely justified in my circumstances at this particular time, like I needed the money. But I could say it's insane that because what I'm really doing is being a thief and stealing it. So I found that with many of my defects of character, I was sure willing to have those be removed, but it's the ones I wasn't willing that I spent a lot of time with. And of course, as it turned out later, I behaved in a sane way through steps 8 and 9 and stopped that behavior. But in step 6, like, had I seen enough, and in those areas of my life, I got to see because of the step, I wasn't. And it was very helpful to me to go through that with somebody who had been through it before, because I was able to see from the evidence of other people's lives that they too had these defects that, in honesty, we weren't willing to get rid of. And so when I found that I finally became willing, and it was a huge thing for me, because I was convinced now not only do I have to pay taxes as they're due and the correct amount, I'm going to have to repay what I haven't paid before. So I'm like just double damning myself, and that's the best I could come up with. And so I was introduced through step 6 to a trust the process, trust this recovery process above everything, which was a fancier way of saying, I didn't know it at the time, is practice these principles in all your affairs. And I got to a place in my life where I was willing to do that. And the end of that story is like everybody else's you hear in AA. Boy, when I got right, all sorts of remarkable things happened. So to me today, and we're working with other people going through the steps, step 6 is huge, because I had a real experience with step 6 eventually, instead of just, finishing my inventory, finishing my step 5, and then blasting through 6 and 7. Okay, so Nancy.
Thank you.
Or any questions or comments?
I just want to, just before you go, Nancy, before you start, it just reminded me this morning, we're reading A New Pair of Glasses by Chuck C. And the last story in that book, he talks about how the security is his relationship with God, and that and he learned that through a very painful lesson of losing a large sum of money, or misplacing his sense of security in the material. And anyway, that reminded me of that what he really realized is that he needed to do God's work, that is where his security is, and that it doesn't lie anywhere else outside of that relationship. So I liked that story, Stephen, about getting honest with money. I mean, it's a big thing, security.
And I couldn't find one person that thought me cheating on taxes was a good idea. But I did think of that.
They just didn't know.
It's that alcoholic thinking. that when you can look at it unemotionally, it's great. Like I was right, and every single other person was wrong.
Right. Nancy, how'd you end up with somebody like this? Just kidding.
Punishment.
We've been classmates for a long time, and it's been all in the plan, right? So
40 years.
Yeah. My youngest child is 40, and that is when I met you. So anyway, so thank you for what you shared. And I agree that step 6 was I kind of blew past it in reading through the steps the first time, maybe more than the first time. It was something, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Check, what's the next sentence to be? But it is contingent. I love the 6 and 7 right in the middle of these 12 steps. And the steps that come before step 6, every one of them is key to giving us this, to adding to our readiness, to adding to our willingness, because without the willingness, then there's no way my 7th step or 8 or 9 is going to have any effect. I can go through the actions and the words, but until it reaches this level of desire, of wanting these defects of character removed. So then it's like, okay, so we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Well, so what are these defects? These defects are hopefully what has been uncovered for me, with help from a sponsor in steps 4 and 5, that I have seen the exact nature of my wrong, which is the beliefs in my mind that push me, encourage me to believe that I need something from you, from the government, from somebody that I need, and I need to have it. And then my focus gets very lasered, and I do what that self says. That's what the whole 4th step is, putting down on paper how self defeated us, right? How that small self defeated us. And then I share it. Sharing it gives me the possibility of seeing the pattern in my life. Like when I saw that, I needed attention. I wanted attention. I needed attention. Every relationship, and then when the preponderance of evidence, I could finally see that this was a pattern and that it had defeated me. And then I'm become ready, right? Now that I see, and part of that seeing is, for me, became this slowing down process of seeing it and not just going like, oh, gross, I see it, I don't want to see it anymore. To see it and to see the pain and the harm that it has caused me and others. It caused harm everywhere. And so that's in what you were referring to, Stephen, is like, have I seen enough of that? Have I seen enough that my way, the way that puts self-interest first above everything, then that it ended up in disaster and a lot of pain for a lot of people. So that's actually, I don't know. One time I called it this kind of holy grief, this grief, but it's holy because if I don't see that, I don't really see a need to fix anything, to have anything be removed, if I don't really own that it caused me and others grief. And so then I can get to that place of, yeah, I have seen enough, and I am willing to have this be removed. Now, a lot of things aren't removed just like that. At least that's been my experience. And we were taught in the steps, or it's discussed that, it could have, this is on God sees the whole plan, right? God sees the whole plan. I think our 12 and 12, they talk about our instincts, and when we willfully demand that they supply us with more satisfactions or pleasures that are possible or due us, that's the point which we depart from the degree of perfection that God wishes for us here on earth. That's the measure of our defects. So, but yeah. So it says God asks only that we try as best we know how to make progress in the building of character, and that we need to be content with patient improvement, because more is always being revealed. Like I see, maybe they're the same defects, but I see them more clearly now than I did a year ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, which means that step 6 is not a one and done. It's an active, it's a bridge to healing is what it is. I have to see what it is that I am ready to give up, before I can say, if I say, I don't have that, then what am I going to give up? But if I see it, then I can say, I don't want to operate this way anymore. I don't want to operate like this. I have more experience now with what it feels like to trust that, like Chuck C says, that trust that my security does not lie there. My security lies within me in a relationship with God. Is that with me every single day at all times? No. Do I depart from that understanding? Yeah. Because sometimes I will still listen, and I'll think like, oh, well, you need this or you need that. And my experience now is then it's like, okay, I'll get that. And then it'll be like, oh, that wasn't it. That wasn't it either. But now what I'm learning now is to look again without judgment, because that is what I find, it heals me much quicker than like another trip to the woodshed, right? This becoming ready, which at first was like, yes, I'm looking at the defects of my thinking that caused this attitude towards life, right? This attitude of I need to get, to rather than I need to give, I want to give and therefore receive. Just this whole revolutionary change, that part of that revolutionary change in our way of thinking hinges on this step. Because if I refuse to acknowledge and take responsibility for my own defective thoughts and beliefs, then I won't ask God to remove them.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I know there's a sentence in the big book that in step 6 is that we ask, and we become entirely ready. If we are not willing to let go of a defect, we ask until it comes, right? It says something like that.
Well,
I think that's in step 8 actually, but
the willingness to make amends, right?
But what you said,
it still works.
Yeah.
Just reading step 6 off the wall, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And like Nancy said, and I said at the beginning, okay, now what's step 7? But with guidance of people that have recovered from alcoholism, Stephen, I had the question, Stephen, are you really ready? And I would have an answer that I've heard at meetings, and all whoever might listen to this that have been to meetings, you heard all, yeah, I want God to remove my self-centeredness, my selfishness, blah, blah, blah. And the question was, are you really ready? Are you entirely ready? The word's in there. Just take it at face value in complete correct context, are you entirely ready? And so in my mind, I might get a little bit resistant to that tone, that type of questioning. And I would say, yes, you know, who wouldn't want to have their selfishness and self-centeredness removed? And he said, well, if you're entirely ready, what are you doing to see what's causing it? And I'm just like a big what, because to me, working on self-centeredness and selfishness is trying not to be that. But I'm not even addressing what causes it. And so when we get down, which I should have experienced by now because it's in the fourth step, you know, the causes and conditions, I get to see that I think I have these needs, and if you don't provide them for me, whether I'm trying to manipulate them or get them from you somehow, like Lara brought up the word security, my securities, I won't have security. So I need you to do this for me. And I need this certain thing to happen. And I'm going to do what I can to make that happen. And so it's these deeper beliefs that I didn't know I had them, let alone how to use the tools to find them. And so step 6, when it was read slowly to me, you know, Stephen, are you entirely ready to have these defects? He said, let's just pick one, you know, just for starters. And I got to see that based on my understanding of how life worked, even after the first 5 steps, if I was going to be honest, which I wanted to try it out to see what it'd be like to be honest, I wasn't yet. But through step 6, when I got to see what was causing the selfishness and self-centeredness, it was a game changer. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. It is a definite hinge, you know, that can't be missed. You know, and yeah, some things that I think should be removed right away. It's like from my small little perspective, you know, it's not going to be unless it could be being helpful to someone else, right? But it will be. And I guess, you know, I've heard it said too that you'll know when you're entirely ready to have whatever be removed when it's entirely removed. And until then, you know, it's our living continues to bring up the evidence that we need, not to condemn ourselves, but to use it to further heal and to further demonstrate that healing.
You're so awesome, Nancy.
I agree.
Well, that was a great discussion and experience, strength, and hope on step 6. I really appreciate you guys, and I look forward to step 7 next month.
Okay.
We love you. We love you too, Lara.
All right.
All right. Have a good rest of the day, you guys.
Okay. Thanks, honey.
See you later.